Do you remember when celebrities came together to save Los Angeles? When Lady Gaga, Billie Eilish, and Sting performed at what was supposed to be the greatest benefit concert for wildfire victims? When Miles Teller stood on stage and promised that all the money raised will go directly to people who need it now? Well, a year later, many of those victims are asking, where's our money? In 2025, devastating wildfires ripped through Los Angeles. The Palisades Fire, the Eaton Fire, killing at least 31 people and destroying 13,000 plus homes. Entire neighborhoods were turned to ash overnight. Families lost everything, and in response, the entertainment industry did what it does best. It put on a show. The FIREAID benefit concert, held on January 30th at the Intuit Dome and Kia Forum, was spectacular. Over 30 artists performed. The concert was streamed on 28 platforms. 50 million people watched worldwide, and together they raised $100 million for wildfire victims. That's an incredible amount of money. $100 million, enough to rebuild lives, to help people get back on their feet, to provide direct relief to those who lost everything. Except that's not what happened. Fast forward, and the House Judiciary Committee released a damning report, and I do mean damning, because according to their investigation, the money that was supposed to go directly to victims, the money that Miles Teller, Samuel L. Jackson, and countless others promised would help people who need it now, well, it went somewhere else entirely. Let's break down where the $100 million actually went, because this is where things get interesting. Of the $100 million raised, $75 million has been distributed so far to 188 different nonprofits. Now, some of these organizations are legitimate. Food banks, animal shelters, organizations providing housing assistance. Nobody's disputing that. But here's where the controversy begins. According to the House Judiciary Report, $100,000 went to voter participation efforts for Native Americans through the California Native Vote Project. Now, voter engagement is important, sure, but is that what you thought you were donating to when you watched Lady Gaga perform for wildfire victims? Another $100,000 went to the NAACP Pasadena. The NAACP does important work, but their stated mission is fighting for civil rights and basic human dignities, not wildfire relief. Then there's the $550,000 that went to various political advocacy groups. $500,000 for political advocacy, when people's homes were literally reduced to ash. And here's one that really gets me. $100,000 went to something called the Altadena Talks Foundation, essentially to fund podcasts. $100,000 to podcasters, not to help victims rebuild, to talk about fire apparently on podcasts. And then we get to the really controversial stuff. Community Organized Relief Efforts, known as CORE, received $250,000. Now, CORE's internal documents obtained by the House Committee showed they listed undocumented migrants as one of their priority groups. The report specifically states that FIREAID funds were directed towards programs benefiting illegal migrants. Now, before people start yelling at me in the comments, what I am saying is that when donors thought they were giving money to help Los Angeles wildfire victims rebuild, they probably didn't realize that money would be prioritized for people who aren't even supposed to be in the country legally. That's a pretty significant detail to leave out. But wait, there's more, and this is where it gets even more infuriating for the victims. The House report found that over $500,000 was used for salaries, bonuses, and consultant fees for nonprofit employees. Let me say that again, bonuses. People received bonuses from wildfire relief funds while victims were still living in hotels and FEMA trailers. The California Charter Schools Association used $64,149 to pay staff stipends at Pasadena Rosebud Academy and $34,400 at Alta Fuerte Public School, described as recognition for extraordinary contributions. The Neighborhood Legal Services of Los Angeles County spent $92,038 on salaries, and the LA Regional Food Bank spent $170,255 on labor costs. And look, I understand that organizations need to pay people to do work, but FIREAID specifically said the funds would be designated for direct relief and will not be used for administrative purposes. So that was a lie. And then there's my personal favorite. Because if you're going to misuse charity funds, you might as well get weird with it. Money went to fungus planting. Yes, you heard that right. Fungus. Apparently, it can help remove fuel for future forest fires, which is great for fire prevention. But again, Was that what the donors thought they were funding? Now let's talk about the victims themselves, because this is what really matters. Mark Jones, who lost his home in Altadena, appeared at the FIREAID concert and told the audience, "My house is gone." 6 months later, he told reporters he'd been waiting for someone to reach out and provide help. Nobody did. He said, "I am sure most Altadenians figured, where is the money? Where is it going?" David Howard lost 2 homes in the Pacific Palisades. He said bluntly, "I've not seen any benefit from the FIREAID money, and I am very involved here, and neither have my neighbors." These are people who stood on that stage, who shared their stories, who lost everything, and they've seen nothing. So what happened? How did we get from all the money will go directly to the people who need it to podcasts and political advocacy groups? Well, FIREAID has a very convenient explanation. When confronted about not giving money directly to victims, they said, and I quote, "FIREAID does not have the capability to make direct payments to individuals, and that was never the plan," unquote. Never the plan. Except that's not what Miles Teller said on stage in front of 50 million people. That's not what Samuel L. Jackson said when he told viewers to go to the website and give what you can, because all the money will go directly to people who need help. FIREAID defenders will point to their independent audit by Latham and Watkins, a major law firm, which found no evidence of misappropriation of funds or deviation from FIREAID's stated mission. And that's technically true. FIREAID apparently did exactly what they intended to do. The problem is what they intended to do and what they told donors were 2 completely different things. This is classic nonprofit maneuvering. Instead of giving money directly to victims, FIREAID created a grant system where they gave money to other nonprofits who then decided how to use it based on their own missions and priorities. It's like a game of telephone, except with $100 million and people's livelihoods on the line. The Annenberg Foundation, which organized FIREAID, says they only play an advisory role in how money is spent. The actual decisions are made by something called the FIREAID Advisory Committee, made up of what they describe as respected philanthropists. The board of trustees includes several executives from the LA Clippers, whose owner, Steve Ballmer, bankrolled much of the concert's operating costs. So you've got billionaires deciding how to distribute money raised for the working class people who lost their homes. What could possibly go wrong? Look, I want to be fair here. The House Judiciary Report may have some political charge to it. It's investigating a California initiative, and they're not shy about using loaded language like pet projects. Democrats have pushed back, with Representative Brad Sherman calling it a partisan attack, noting that only a small portion of the funds went to things that people are complaining about. And it's true that many legitimate organizations received funds and did good work. There were food banks, animal shelters, mental health services. Real assistance did happen for some people. But here's my problem. When you promise donors that money will go directly to victims, you create a specific expectation. You're asking people to open their wallets based on a promise. And if you know from the beginning that you're not going to fulfill that promise the way people understand it, that's not misleading, that's a lie. There's still $25 million left to distribute, and now, thanks to this report, there's enormous pressure on FIREAID to be more transparent about where that money goes. The bigger issue is what this reveals about disaster relief in America. We've created a system where when tragedy strikes, the immediate response is to throw money at nonprofits and hope it trickles down to the right people. But nonprofits have their own agendas, their own missions, and their own operational costs. And somewhere between the donation and the victim, the money gets diluted, diverted, and distributed in ways that have nothing to do with the original intent. Meanwhile, over a year after the fires, thousands of victims still have no home to return to. In Palisades and Altadena, empty lots vastly outnumber construction sites. People are still fighting with insurance companies, still living in temporary housing, still waiting for help that was promised but never came. So what's the lesson here? What do we take away from the FIREAID controversy? First, be skeptical of celebrity charity. When stars align to raise money for a cause, it makes for great television and impressive fundraising numbers. But good intentions and star power don't automatically translate into effective aid. Second, demand transparency. Before you donate to any disaster relief fund, ask specific questions. Will money go to the victims or to intermediary organizations? What percentage goes to administrative costs? How will the funds be distributed and to whom? And third, understand that our disaster relief system is kind of broken. We shouldn't have to rely on benefit concerts to help wildfire victims rebuild. We have government and insurance companies exactly for this purpose. The FIREAID concert was supposed to be a moment of unity, compassion, and healing for Los Angeles. Instead, it's become yet another example of how even our most well-intentioned efforts can go sideways quickly when there's no accountability, there's no oversight, there's no real commitment to the people who need help most. $100 million was raised in their names, and they deserve to know where every penny went.